Hello and welcome another episode of Conversation on Artificial Intelligence. So today we have a very interesting and very dear interview because we're going to interview the CEO of Trueface AI. This brings me back to my times to Chicago. The interviewer is from Chicago. But before we go any further, let me tell you this. If you are coming back to the channel, thank you so much. If you're coming for the first time, it is an honor and privilege for us to have you here. And the reason why the interview today is very important is because we're going to look into how companies are looking at utilizing the recognition of the face in a variety of business situations. So we're going to learn what is happening in this business space. And then so we're going to learn a little bit about the technology challenges that are behind the recognition of people in various public places or in private places and so on. So without further ado, let me introduce Shaun Moore. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on today.
Shaun, we share, let's say, a long period spent in Chicago. Tell us a little bit about yourself and about how the idea of Trueface.ai came about.
Sure. So like you mentioned, I grew up, born and raised just north of the city of Chicago, and actually went down to Dallas to play football in college. And I think that was a very good first step to becoming an entrepreneur, because you learn discipline and managing a lot of tasks very quickly at a young age. And then it wasn't until I graduated, went on to work for a bank, spent a year there, left that bank, where I really jumped into understanding how to build a company and what's needed to build a company. So March of 2012, my co-founder was in North Africa at the time. I flew out there and we started to do a lot of research on different areas that interested us. And one of them was government technology. So we dove in headfirst, researching things that the FBI was putting out, that the CIA was making mention of. And what we came across was a paper about how a database was changing from fingerprint scanning to facial recognition. And that's where a little light bulb in our head went off, because we recognized biometrics in 2012 as the future of authenticating people, or authorization. And when we took a look at fingerprint, iris, and facial recognition is truthfully the most simple, because it's a passive form of recognition. You're not physically putting your thumb on a dirty thumbprint scanner, and you're not putting your face directly in front of a camera to scan your eyeballs. So to us, this was the stepping point into how we got involved with facial recognition.
So that's kind of an interesting story, but how did you really went from the idea, and how did you solidify the idea, and then you started to take steps towards making it real?
Absolutely. It's a very different path for everyone to take, but we just kept reading and reading and reading about the advancement of this technology over time. And it's been around for 30, 40 years now, maybe even longer. And we started to see what the evolutionary cycles looked like. So we knew that it was going to be faster. We knew it was going to process quicker, and it would be more accurate in 3 to 5 years when we started. So the steps that we took were actually doing that research, calling those companies that have been working on it for 30 years, talking to their employees, talking to their founders, and understanding why they built it the way they built it. And so, building technology 30 years ago versus building it now, there's significant implications from a social perspective as well as a technology adaptation perspective. And so understanding where we fit in that ecosystem was critically important to us. And then we started reaching out to people on LinkedIn, friends of friends that had started companies, just to gain a really thorough understanding of what we were in for and what this journey may look like for us. So, getting into the nitty gritty of it, we leaned on our network significantly to help, throw advice our way. We digested that information, and then we made decisions that we thought were best for the two of us at that time. So, no path is the same, but, our base is grounded in that we spent hours upon hours upon hours researching and talking to people and going and presenting this idea to the public at that time, so we could refine that pitch, we could refine the product that we were building, and we could really refine how we were going to take that next step forward.
Was your public at that point in time your Chicago community, or it was already kind of a larger community that involved people in different cities?
So we started actually talking to people in Morocco about it, which is where we had the idea for the company. So we were based in North Africa there. We started to socialize it with some circles that we had there. And that the reception of that in a place like Morocco is going to be very different from the United States. So it was just a way for us to test different markets. And from that point, I actually moved over to London and took some courses over at Oxford and used the London entrepreneurship circles to further see how people would react to this technology. And I was working at Google's Entrepreneur Center over there and going to pitch events, taking acting classes, and just trying to immerse myself in that culture so that I could continue to see how people were responding to the idea of putting facial recognition on a doorbell or putting it on an access control system and how they felt about that. And London being one of the most watched cities in the world, I would have thought we had better reception to it. But truthfully, we received a lot of pushback on it. So I like to think of it as we were practicing. We were practicing in Morocco. We were practicing in London. And then coming back to the US is really when we went to market with the idea. We launched the website, got some media, and then we were off to the races. So we actually ended up being named one of the top 10 companies of CES. And that is what really kicked off the product development and the media blitz that happened around putting facial recognition on a doorbell for the smart home.
So basically, there was a period of investigation, trial and errors. There were also pushbacks. What made you and your partner go ahead? Why didn't you surrender to the pushback?
I think it's a little bit crazy, a little bit confident. We saw this vision for the future, and it was the only thing that we saw. And so I think that you go up against these roadblocks consistently, but in your mind, that this is happening. You're the most informed in that situation, and you start to see little breakpoints in the company's life cycle. So little places here and there where facial recognition is talked about more than fingerprint scanning. When Apple announced that they were putting facial recognition on the iPhone X, it did a lot of good for our business because it verifies what we've been saying for 5 years now. And so, it just took some adoption for us to really get the momentum we needed. But we definitely ran into people saying that's never going to work. You can never put facial recognition on a device that small. It's not going to work well for access control. So we got a lot of people telling us it wasn't going to work. And I think it was really persistence and dedication to wanting to change how history is written, to be the author of that book that we were writing, where we said we're not going to quit no matter what. If we need to change something in the product, we'll change it. And I think that's shown over the course of time. We were once building a doorbell. We were manufacturing hardware and embedding facial recognition on it. And now we're one of the top 5 performing facial recognition algorithms in the world. And so we spun Trueface out of what was Chewy, and we took the lessons that we learned embedding facial recognition on hardware and applied that to how we deployed Trueface. And that is the fortress of what we have at Trueface now, is that knowledge base.
It looks like in the evolution of the company, there are some milestones. So at the point you try to incorporate face recognition into some devices, then there is somewhere in time where there is a pivot event. Maybe it's the CS conference, and then you evolve into what Trueface.ai is today. So maybe it's worth to compare just briefly what was before Trueface, what the company was doing before Trueface, and what Trueface.ai is today.
The company before Trueface was actually called Chewy, and CHUI. We had built and manufactured a smart doorbell which enabled the smart home based on identity. So it allowed you or your family members to walk up, enter the door, unlock the door with a Bluetooth enabled lock, and then have music play, have the lights turn on. So we built integrations with some of the top smart home products and enabled this custom home. From that point, one of the things that we learned was with traditional doorbell wiring, there's going to be some risk associated with not getting enough current when you're running facial recognition at the edge there. And so we ran into some hurdles with the manufacturing of that. And then as we saw that develop and more people start to talk about what we were doing, we noticed demand in the commercial access control space. So putting our camera for a small business or for a co-working space. and using that to grant access. That market for us became much more attractive because we knew what the infrastructure was like. The position was all the same on the door for the camera. We knew what the wiring was like. We could connect hardwired into a WiGAN signal. And so, we transitioned from providing a smart doorbell into providing a smart access control system in the course of about 2 years. And that was really when we started to get good feedback about how the facial recognition was working and what those companies needed for them to continue to be buyers of ours or to tell their friends about us. And the most critical piece that we learned throughout the initial period was, if we're going to be using facial recognition for access control into a home or into a business, we have to be as sure as possible that someone's not holding up a picture or a video to gain access as someone else. So it's what's called today, presentation attacks, spoof attempts, liveness detection. There's a couple of different words that mean slightly different things, but it's ensuring the person in front of the camera is who they say they are. And at the time in 2015, the technology just wasn't there. And so we spent years understanding how to make that better and how to build a solution that people were comfortable with to use for access control purposes. And the better that we became at that, the more people demanded the software that we had built for it. And we got to a point where we made a very difficult decision in 2017 to shut down our manufacturing facility. So we were no longer going to manufacture cameras or hardware and just sell software. And when we did that, we wanted to rebrand. It's a very different product that we're selling there. And so we rebranded as Trueface in, I think it was June 28th of 2017. And now we just offer localized facial recognition, object recognition, and more general computer vision solutions for companies looking to utilize their existing camera infrastructure.
In this transition, there is not only a product transition, there is also a business model transition. So you evolved from trying to sell stuff to the end consumers to trying instead to sell things to large companies or medium companies. How did you manage that transition? Evidently, it was positive in the end, but what were the challenges? What additional capabilities did your company need to develop?
Sure. I would say it was probably the least expensive MBA I could have ever gotten. So that experience alone taught me a significant amount about the buying decision from a customer to the buying decision of a business, and then the buying decision of a business who's going to be selling that solution to a customer. So, there's three very, very different business models of how we can sell this technology. And there's no template for it. There's no right or wrong. It's really about what people are willing to pay for the technology that you provided, or what economic drivers are you leaning on for their business so they see value or ROI in what you're doing. And so the market has come into play with how we price our products, and we price them, for when we were pricing a doorbell, there's a lot that goes into that, like BOM and hardware costs, service costs, and now it's definitely more on the software servicing side and the engineering talent that goes into building those products and deploying those solutions for specific clients. So the hurdles are that there is no playbook, there is no template, there's no right or wrong. It's just, is someone willing to pay that or not? And if they aren't, why not? Are you not providing enough value? Or are you not providing the right service? And I think the way that we've approached this is we really try to understand as intimately as possible what value that we're adding to that business we're selling into. And that's what helps us, or that's what's helped us in the past price these products out. But very, very different business models.
When we look at a company like this, now transitioning a little bit towards the technology, the general public, when they think about face recognition, think more of public security. And, the FBI thinks the terrorist stuff that you were, like, that motivated you at the beginning, although now you're in a different space. And also, when we think about public security, then there is this issue of privacy emerging. So no more than 5 days ago, I stumbled upon an article, actually it was a video on LinkedIn, where they said that in China there are some 180 million cameras, and all of them are monitored, and the government can recognize anybody. But then somebody else commented, no, that's not possible because the technology is not precise. I think before we go, like in what you do with the technology, but could you shed some light on what is the level of precision and what is the context in which the technology that recognize people from face work well?
It is definitely a difficult answer because the technology is used in a variety of ways. And depending on which way it's used, you're going to reach peak accuracy. To give you an example, when you can control the environment, when you're using mobile phone login, or when you're walking up to a door looking at a camera to gain access, the environment's a lot more constrained, it's a lot more predictable. And so the accuracy thresholds there are in the high 99s because we know what to look for. When you talk about surveillance in China or public security where cameras may be 10 feet in the air and people's faces are down looking at their phones, it becomes harder. And so we've taken the stance that we can really help drive this industry through the responsible use of facial recognition and computer vision technologies. And that means a couple things to us. And I just published a blog post about it. But one, first and foremost, is humanity first. We built this technology for the benefit of all humanity. It's there to augment human decision making. It's not there to replace human decision making. So for specific cases, the rules that we bound our clients to is that in certain environments where someone's life could be at risk, it's humanity first. And the second point that I want to get across here is that it's data security. So when you mention there that people are concerned about privacy risk and data risk, it's absolutely a concern of everyone in the industry. And we really push our clients to operate with the customer's data privacy and data security in mind first and foremost, as we've done with our customers. And then the third is transparency. I think that the adoption of this technology only becomes mainstream when people are transparent with how it's being used. And there are a variety of ways it's being used right now. One is mobile banking. We've seen it in 13 airports in the US right now to improve the process of checking in, dropping bags off, and entering a plane. And one thing to note about that is, I believe it was in LAX, that Los Angeles airport, that they've reduced the boarding time almost in half. So from 45 minutes to 22 minutes, I believe were the numbers. And that's an incredible increase in efficiency. And so we're seeing the value there. And you look at retail, how they're using the technology, fintech and banking, or companies just using it for access control. So, you have different verticals with this technology being adopted in which we are reaching peak performance in the high 99s accuracy. And then you have the harder to nail down where cameras are in the sky, they don't capture a face perfectly. And truth be told, accuracy is also very high there, but it's not at the level in which it's at where you're walking up face onto a camera. So it's a moving target. And we as a company, it's our goal and our job to improve that technology to get to a point where everyone's comfortable with it.
So let's look then to some of these applications that you're talking about. You said that in the aviation/transportation industry, the technology basically cut the time at the security check 50%. Can you tell us a little bit more details, like how it is used, who are the typical customers, why they buy it? Is it something that will be reaching scale, or it's like a pilot project at the moment? Because it's certainly a topic that interests a lot of people. I mean, we all pissed to waste 40 minutes, 50 minutes, 1 hour, sometimes even 2 hours on international flights.
Right. So it's definitely being used differently by different industries, and we'll go into detail on a couple of those. When you think about transportation and hospitality, those proof of concepts, there's a cycle for how they buy and procure this technology. Typically, there's a request for proposal, then there's some sort of pilot talk or proof of concept talk, and then there's a small deployment, and then there's scale. And so that proof of concept could be just one airport. It could be 5 airports. We're not sure. We're not the ones providing the technology there, but that's typically how it's bought. And then they'll take those results back over a specified period of time and see the result and see the ROI. See, did this increase efficiency? Did this reduce costs? Are people happier at the airport now? Is it more or less stress? And so, I think that we are currently in a cycle where there is a lot of proof of concepts for these massive companies, but they're starting to budget this technology into 2019 and 2020, which tells us that there is mass adoption of it. So, we're just right before these companies start to deploy this technology for, various use cases around the world. And this is not just a technology being used in China or over in Africa or in the US. It's being used everywhere. It's being used everywhere for different reasons. And, we've seen that evolve over the last couple of years, but I think 2018 was a very big year in the news with facial recognition, but also how people have adopted it and started to understand how it can benefit their life. So when we look at who our largest customers are, the hospitality space is a big one because there's an opportunity there to improve the VIP experience, and to do so with an opt-in program, meaning that the person knows that they're involved in the program, which is something that we strongly push. And then you've got customers in the banking sector who are looking to increase the security of transactions, increase the security of account opening, of pulling money out of an ATM. So you're reducing fraud, and that's a very easy to determine ROI metric for us, because you take 3 months time and you deploy the technology in a certain area and you can watch fraud decrease. And so, there are two different types of environments that we're all hitting the same cycle at once. And in the hospitality space, further, cruise ships, for instance, there's been a lot of cruise ship talk about using facial recognition for the embarking process. And we're working with a company on that right now. But that also, it's increasing efficiency, it's reducing time people wait in line, and it's allowing people to spend more time doing what they were there to do in the first place, and that's enjoy a vacation. And so, we're definitely going through the vertical segments now to see where this technology is most valuable today. And I think the final say-all for us has been, we've seen the most value derived in access control. And that means a couple things. That means physical access, but it also means digital access. So verifying identity online to log into an account, a banking account, to make a high transaction, to do things like know your client, anti-money laundering. So in the access control space, we've seen significant demand because it's replacing technology that can be tricked far too easily. And that technology being tricked leads to a lot of people having to deal with a lot of stress and financial loss if that's the case.
Basically summarizing, right now the product market fit that you're seeing is the access control. So meaning a variety of things, from the person that is trying to make a purchase online, and you can kind of double check that it's the right person, it's not like a fake person, to the guy that is pulling the money from the ATM, to somebody that is getting into a cruise liner, to somebody who goes to the hotel and maybe has access to a special room or has access to special services and gets recognized without having to sign, and
right.
So on and so forth. So typically when a new technology / business model or business package goes into market, you face some kind of resistance, some kind of challenge, and then you wonder where the challenge comes from. So is there any space where you feel there is still a technology gap? So out of the customers' opportunities you are currently exploring, is there any point where you think, wow, if I had that other feature, if I had that other technology, if the technology could do this, then I could capture that?
Not at this point, no, because it's still new, like I said, in a lot of these product life cycles. And so, having the best performing facial recognition with anti-spoofing is a core component to a lot of these businesses, a lot of how these businesses operate with access. And so we've not seen anything that we don't currently have that has shined a bright light on in our side mirror or anything like that to distract us from what we're doing. With that said, we have added things like age, gender, emotion, analytics. And so, those are in private beta for us, and they're only used in very specific use cases. But they are things that we're building a full solution around. We want our client to take our solution, put it on their infrastructure, and be able to retrieve data that they never knew they could find, or they never knew they had. And so it's really empowering the camera to make that camera intelligent to gain information from. That's the goal for us, is become a computer vision solution for all existing infrastructure and provide that feedback back to the business owner or the person responsible at that business. But long way to say that so far we've not run into any technology that we wish that we had that would make a deal move faster, or that would allow us to break into a new market. We are fairly happy and confident with the technology we have.
That's kind of interesting. It means that most of the challenges are more like informing people about the technology, convincing them. So it's more like on the adoption, marketing / sales side of it. And it looks like, however, that even at this point where you are kind of battling with the adoption and finding new customers, even at this point, you're already thinking of developing new features, which seems to be in the realm of analytics, and so offering insights to decision makers and perhaps to machine. Where do you really see this going? What else can be built with all these analytics solutions?
No, we definitely want to be part of it, enabling additional automation or enabling more custom experiences for people. The analytics piece that I mentioned, like I said, is in private beta, so we don't know if we'll end up releasing it or not. But it's a way for us to understand, is the information that we're providing valuable, and does it fall within our 3 principles? And so, we evaluate all these things with those guiding principles. And at this point, we've seen value derived from some of those, and some are yet to be tested. So, I think that having the vision of creating a solution that can be plugged into a camera and provide all sorts of analytics, from object detection to facial recognition, we open the doors for how people can start to understand their customer or their client and really customize that experience for them. And we're living in a world where everyone expects, immediacy, like from Amazon, and they expect customization on trips they go on. And so I think that we're already moving socially in that direction, and the technology is catching up with how can we provide that experience that you want in real time. And it's a very difficult thing to think through because we're not there yet. But that's where I see the future of this technology going, is it's really real-time customization to specific individuals that want to participate.
That's very intriguing. And I think that leads to our last question, I would say. And it is basically, your technology is and business solution is kind of working in between devices and pure play software solutions. Now, in order to provide some kind of real-time service in different places where people are, it's probably you need an orchestration between devices as well. What do you think the future looks like in that direction?
That's probably a 5 to 10 hour conversation, but the computing power definitely needs to be there. One of the things that we're really strong on is siloed data, so siloed customer data. So none of our clients are allowed to use other clients' data. They don't see their customers. All of our technology is deployed on our clients' infrastructure, so we never even have access to that information. So what we're talking about here is really going to be first customization in real time for specific industry or specific brands in that industry. And then I think as the evolution of this technology happens and people start to understand what their data means to them, we can see some overlap. And that's when you get into 10 years down the line, when a brand in hospitality sharing information with an airport, who's sharing information with a car sharing app. And now you've got this custom experience that is transcending just one platform of technology into more of a multi-compute type of environment and information share in real time. Like I said, it's very hard to comprehend and to grasp that concept right now because the technology is definitely not there, but it's something that will be there. And that's where we're pushing our company is to understand how we can continue to lead that.
So Shaun, our time today is coming to an end. We thank you so much for being here. So for our audience, what we have seen today is really a wealth of very interesting information around a startup that is at the same time bringing to market a new technology, face recognition. They have taken it from the lab to a point that for some specific use cases, the technology is extremely precise. But we did not learn only about the technology. There is also a business offering here, a product is being created, a service is being created that is serving new use cases. And I think that's the one thing to learn today, in addition to the fact that we had the opportunity to interview a very successful entrepreneur that has endured through several difficult times in the beginning and followed his vision. So that's also a big learning today. Now, if you have questions about this video or other videos, please comment below. If you want to keep receiving this content, please subscribe to the channel. And for the time being, thank you so much for being here. And Shaun, thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was fun.